So I asked you guys, what phone do you want me to compare the Galaxy S25 to? And a lot of you said the S24, but more of you said the iPhone 16. I think that makes a lot more sense. S24 to S25 is really not a big jump, but some of you out there who have $799, which is the price of both of these phones, might be looking at one, but also considering the other. I like both of these phones. They have their advantages, and from a design standpoint, they look very similar in a lot of ways. They both have rounded corners. They're pretty much the exact same height. The iPhone is a tiny bit heavier at 170 grams, but the iPhone is a bit more comfortable to hold. Even though both of these phones have flat displays, the Galaxy S25 is slightly sharper on the edges where they smooth them out on the iPhone. Again, this is such a minor detail because I feel like 99.9% of you are going to be using cases anyways. They're both IP68, so they can handle some droppage in the water. But look, I like the way the colors are looking this year for the iPhone. We have a lot more vibrant colors. This is a little bit of a change. Previous iPhones just looked so muted and so boring. Like, this blue is absolutely gorgeous. And what you get with this is sort of a two-tone finish. A light frosted blue on the back. The edges, or the aluminum edges, are a little bit darker, and then you get a bit of both around the camera ring. Now, Samsung has some nice colors too. Unfortunately, I only have the black version here, but I'm gonna give the slight design change to the iPhone this year. I just think it looks a tiny bit nicer. Button placement is a little bit different. Most of your buttons are on the right-hand side with the Galaxy phone, whereas you have your volume rocker and action button on the left-hand side. You do get an extra button with the iPhone 16, which is the camera control feature. Now, I personally don't use camera control. I've tried, I just don't need it. So what I like to do is bind it to something else, but maybe you feel different. Like, maybe you're using your phone for pictures all the time, that having this unique button might make it easier for you to get the picture quickly. Now, if you're a maniac who's constantly copying files back and forth between your phones, you might gravitate towards the Galaxy device. It's using USB 3.2, so transfer speeds are faster. The iPhone's a little bit slower at USB 2.0. If you want a faster transfer speed on the iPhone, you definitely have to move up to the Pro models. Now, the displays are a hot topic because there's advantages to the iPhone and vice versa. Now, they both have very, very beautiful displays, but the advantage of the Galaxy phone is that you have a 120 hertz refresh display. Now, if you are an enthusiast or you really understand this stuff and you can notice it, maybe you're a gamer, you're gonna want 120 hertz. It is just the easiest way to make your phone feel faster. Everything just feels more fluid, especially when you're scrolling. The iPhone, probably the best 60 hertz you're gonna get, but it just doesn't feel as nice. But the advantage to the iPhone is you actually get a 10-bit display. The Galaxy S25 is still rocking an 8-bit panel, which is kind of weird. You need a 10-bit panel if you want to watch HDR properly. And when I put these two phones beside each other, HDR content on the iPhone looked better. But you do get a slightly bigger display on the S25. This one is 6.2 compared to 6.1. But I will give the speaker quality to the iPhone 16. It gets a slightly bit louder, and there's just a little bit more balance to the sound compared to the S25. As for the front-facing camera, they're both 12 megapixels on both of these devices. They can shoot 4K video, it's not a problem, but in terms of overall picture quality, it depends. Some instances I found the Galaxy S25 to look a bit better. Like in this portrait shot, there's a little bit more color on my face. But the iPhone does a better job with edge detection. The Galaxy S25 just blurred a lot more hairs. But when you switch it to a regular selfie shot, it kind of flips. The iPhone has a little bit more color in my face compared to the Galaxy device, but the differences are not that big. All right, another cold day here in Canada. -7 Celsius, not too bad. But yeah, let's look at the front-facing cameras, okay? Galaxy S25 versus iPhone 16. I'm gonna point it towards the sun. Let's see how it handles it. All right. You guys let me know, obviously, which one looks better. And yeah, which one has the better audio quality. Now, battery life. Look, these phones are not 2-day phones. They just have smaller batteries, so there's just not gonna be able to get the same sort of battery life as their bigger counterparts. But because the S25 is using a Snapdragon 8 Elite, I'm finding I'm getting about an hour more of battery life compared to last year's Galaxy S24. The iPhone 16 still gets better battery life overall, but it's not by much, maybe like an hour more of use compared to the Samsung. Now, performance is an interesting topic. I'm not gonna get too into it, but I will say this. These are fast phones. The iPhone has faster single core clock speeds, but multi-core performance on the Galaxy 8 Elite is faster. But it doesn't matter if you're gaming. It doesn't matter if you're just using your phone regularly. I literally saw no difference between both of these devices. The only time you will see a difference is if the game is optimized better for iOS, which sometimes does happen compared to Android. But for most people, like 90% of people, these phones feel fast. I would say the Galaxy S25 feels faster just because of that high refresh rate. Now we gotta talk about the camera because there's a little bit of variance here between these two phones. With the iPhone, you get two lenses, a 48 megapixel wide lens, and then you have a 12 megapixel ultra wide lens. The Galaxy device has a 50 megapixel wide lens, 10 megapixel telephoto lens, 3 times optical, and then a 12 megapixel ultra wide lens. These are both very capable shooters. During the day, they both take fantastic photos. They have slight differences in terms of the coloring. You really can't go wrong with the other. I will say though that photos on the iPhone tend to be a bit more consistent, especially when you're going between different lenses, whereas the Galaxy sometimes suffers with a little bit of exposure changes. So keep that in mind. I also find the transition between the ultra wide lens to the main lens to be quicker and smoother on the iPhone. Not a big deal, but it is noticeable, especially when you're using both of these phones. Also, the ultra wide lens on the iPhone is wider. So if you want to get more in your shot, the iPhone does a tiny bit better of a job. The only real major difference I saw was at nighttime. Like, they both do well, right? But I found the iPhone to be better in nighttime situations, where the Galaxy device would tend to struggle sometimes, make the image look way too over sharpened, and it just started to look a bit fake. The iPhone wasn't perfect either. Like, you would see some noise in the shadows, but it's more realistic, you know? It didn't end up looking like an oil painting, and this was consistent between the different lenses. The advantage to the Galaxy device is as soon as you start passing that 2x zoom, as soon as you hit 3 or 10 or even 30, which is its max digital length, the Galaxy phone starts to take better photos because the iPhone is limited in how far you can zoom. Like, now video at nighttime, better on the iPhone. It was brighter, there was less noise, it looked a tiny bit better, but not by a lot. Where it does change though is regular everyday video. The video on the iPhone was a little bit brighter. I saw more details in the ground. The only advantage maybe to the S25, it has slightly better object image stabilization, but the iPhone even today still takes the best video overall. So look, I don't know what to say to you. You know, like me personally, I am not the market for the iPhone 16. I can't use a 60 hertz display. So I would gravitate towards the Galaxy S25. That's just me. And I know one of the arguments is going to be resale value later on down the road. And if that's you, then iPhone is obviously going to give you better value. But here's the thing. Samsung kind of circumvents that by giving you such incredible deals up front that it kind of takes away the need to sell it for more later on. Like, they end up being pretty even, right? They both have similar amounts of updates. Like, Apple doesn't say exactly how many years, but usually it's 7, which is the same amount as what Samsung is currently offering on their devices. The only benefit to the iPhone is you get those updates immediately, whereas with the Galaxy device, you have to wait for Samsung to take the new version of Android and update their software and eventually push it out. And if you're an enthusiast, that might have sort of bother you. But look, you can't go wrong with either of these phones, right? I feel like if you're in the Apple ecosystem, the easy answer is obviously the iPhone. If you're more of an enthusiast, then maybe gravitate towards the Galaxy S25 because you get some of those extra features that the iPhone doesn't have. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section down below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.